Right, hello, here we are then. So I've completed here the tail up to row 12. I've started to work row 12 here, but I've got all sort of the first 11 rows completed on the tail. And those rows, you can see the left edge, if I'm looking at it upside down here, the left edge is straight. The right edge has got this lean out where we've increased. So we started with, what did we start with? 5 shells, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've ended up with 7 up here. So it's given us that kind of increase out for the tail. We don't want to go any further with that because our mermaid is kind of sitting to the side. So we now want to kind of bring the tail, sort of taper the tail again. So we're going to start doing some decreases. The work would actually be this way up. Okay, so we've done the decreases and we're now going to start curving it back in, and the tail is going to become narrower as we work. Okay, there's nothing difficult. The pattern doesn't change at all, and neither does the fact that you alternate colours on every row. That doesn't change at all. All that happens really is where you kind of begin and end your row, it sort of stops right in the middle of a shell, which we've not really done before, and leaves us some gaps at the edge. So let me just show you that. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 shells, and our pattern calls for 6.5. So I've got one more shell to do. Normal pattern, normal placement. They're not going anywhere dodgy or anything like that, so that's fine. Oh, and I've just completely undone it all. I think if I just sort of point out a couple of rows where the beginning and ends are, again, you're going to be absolutely fine to finish it off. Okay, so that's my last shell. And I've just got to finish off, according to my pattern, I've got to finish off with a double crochet. So just in the same way as I've always done, I'm going to miss 2 and put my double crochet in the centre of that shell from before, and not finish the double crochet because just as before I'm joining in a new yarn to work in the other direction. So you can see I've got this little ridge, this little shelf left over, which is going to have no stitches worked into it, which is a little bit different to what we've done before, but which as you work the tail kind of gets blended and you don't notice it at all. This next row we're working with turquoise and silver, and I have been a complete numpty and forgotten to carry my yarn up, which is what I did last time. So all I'm going to do, probably a good thing to show you, is I'm just going to snip it. Got to put that little knot in the end, like I told you before, to stop any fraying. And I'll just start with it again on this new row. So if you do choose to not carry it up the side, it doesn't make a whole heap of difference really, as far as I can tell. So don't worry too much if you make a little mistake. Right, so we're going to carry on. Let's have a little look at what row 13 and perhaps row 14. I'll see how we go. Might only need one. Let's just see what they look like. It's not rocket science. I'm sure you're going to be absolutely fine. Right, so here we go. So all I'm doing here is finishing the last stitch of row 12, and I'm finishing the last stitch of row 12 with those new colours, just as we've done all the way through. Okay, and we're now going to turn the work. Now, the first thing I notice on row 13, which is different, all these ends for a start, there's quite a lot of them, and I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to sew them in. Isn't it funny how attitudes change? Right, sorry, so row 13, the first thing I notice is there is no chain, which is very unusual because we've worked at least 1 and sometimes 3 up till this point on every row. Just trying to get my working yarns together. There we go. Right, no chain. I'm going to miss the first stitch to the base of the hook, so I'm not going to do anything in there at all. And here's the new thing. I'm going to slip stitch across 2 stitches, and this is what is going to help us bring our working yarn into the position that it needs to be to work our next row. Now what that means is that we've already moved across yet another shell. Can you see we finished in the middle of this blue, this turquoise blue shell on the previous row, and we're not even starting until the middle of this green ice shell of this row. So it's already kind of cutting down. We're getting that slant, that reducing slant going in the other direction. That's exactly what we need, so that's great news. Okay, so 1 slip stitch in each of next 2 stitches I've done. Then we're going to put double crochet in, and then lo and behold, we're back into our familiar pattern with our 1 double crochet and our 5 treble to make the fans. And so we, you know, we're in, like I said, familiar ground here. We know how to work this. We know what this is going to look like. At the end of this particular row, we need to end up with 6 shells. So we will have reduced our shell count. I've decided I like that shell count. We'll have reduced our shell count by another half on this row. So I'm just going to work across until we get close to that kind of count and see where our end point is. Right, okay, I'm coming up to my last shell. And while I've been doing this, I've been thinking, yes, it is an unusual and noteworthy thing. This side of the tail is going to continue in this lovely sort of outward slope that we've started already. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So basically all the changes are going to happen on this side of the tail, you know, where we sort of stopped abruptly and then did a few slip stitches to start us off. We're bringing a slant in on this side. The one that we'd already started on this side is going to remain unchanged, and you'll see that because some of the sort of starting patterns will be familiar. So where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one more in there. 6 shells. And we're going to finish this, which is row 13. We're just going to finish that with that 1 double crochet. 1, 2 in here. Is that right? La la la. Yes. And we're going to finish again by changing the colour. So I don't really think there's an awful lot extra you'll need to know about the decreasing. It is just simply those rows which start and finish a little bit sooner than we'd expected them to up to this point. And if you tell yourself that you're just kind of creating parallel lines, parallel slants, that will make sense to you why you're kind of stopping early. That's what the decreases on the tail look like, and I think that's probably all you need to see to be able to finish that quite happily. I'm going to go ahead and finish all the way down, I think, to, where are we? Do we do the tail fins? Yes, the tail fins. So I'm going to finish this tail. So I'll show you where we're going to get to. I think we are currently, where are we? We're currently on this row here. So I'm just going to finish these rows. It's not a great deal left to do. A few more rows, and then we will start this beautiful tail fin at the end of it.